One of the UK's biggest house builders has just seen its profits collapse by more than half in only 6 months. Not a startup, not a reckless developer, but a company that's been building British homes for decades. Vistry Group's profits are down 55%. And that single number tells us far more about the future of housing in Britain than any government press release ever will. Because while major builders are quietly bleeding cash, the government is still promising 1.5 million new homes, HT. So the obvious question is this: who exactly is supposed to build them? The companies meant to deliver those homes can barely stay afloat themselves. This isn't just a bad earnings update you can scroll past. When house builders start failing, the consequences ripple through the entire economy. You feel it when you can't buy. You feel it when rents keep rising. You feel it every time a housing target quietly gets missed. I've been looking at the numbers, speaking to people inside the industry, and what's actually happening is far worse than what's being admitted publicly. This isn't a temporary dip. It won't magically fix itself when interest rates fall. This is a structural failure of the UK house building model. And once you see what's really going on, you'll understand why the housing crisis isn't easing, it's about to accelerate. Vistry, a warning sign. Let's start with Vistry, because their results give us a clear window into the problem. Pre-tax profit has fallen to around 40 million €. That might sound healthy until you realize it was more than 90 million quid this time last year. That isn't a slowdown. That's a collapse. Even more worrying is what's happening to their order book, the homes people have actually agreed to buy. It's shrinking. Think about how alarming that is. In the middle of a national housing shortage, one of Britain's largest builders can't find enough buyers. How does that make sense? Simple. People can't afford the homes being built. The average UK salary sits around 33,000. The average new build home costs roughly 280,000 to you. That's over 8 times income. Banks won't lend that much. And even if they did, the monthly repayments would crush anyone on an average wage. So builders are stuck. If they cut prices, they lose money on every home. If they keep prices high, nothing sells. There is no winning move. Costs have destroyed the margins. And it gets worse. Construction costs haven't fallen. Land prices haven't corrected. Labor costs are up around 30% since COVID. Material prices remain stubbornly high. The profit margin that once made house building viable has been wiped out. I spoke recently to a quantity surveyor who laid it out bluntly. On a typical $250,000 home, builders used to make between $30,000 and $40,000 cases. Now they're lucky to clear Mountensieks. And on some developments, they're losing money on every single unit sold.
One delay.
One price increase. One mistake. That tiny margin disappears instantly. Buyers have quietly walked away. Something extraordinary is happening and almost nobody is talking about it. Buyers have gone on strike. Not formally, not in an organized way. They've simply stopped buying. Estate agents are reporting the lowest viewing numbers since 2008. Not because people don't want homes, but because they've realized the maths no longer works. Put yourself in the buyer's shoes. You save for years to scrape together a deposit. You go to the bank. They offer around 4 to 4.5 times your salary at interest rates near 7%. You run the numbers. The mortgage alone eats 60% of your take-home pay. We add council tax, utilities, maintenance, and there's nothing left. So buyers are doing something unprecedented at scale. They're saying no. They're waiting. Even during the financial crisis, people believed things would improve. Now that belief has gone. Once people stop believing that property always goes up, the entire system starts to unravel. Builders can't build profitably anymore. Here's the truth: the industry doesn't want advertised. Large-scale house building is no longer profitable at prices buyers can afford. Internal figures from multiple major builders show break-even prices of around $220,000 for a standard 3-bedroom home. In many areas, the maximum achievable sale price is only around $250,000. That $30,000 buffer vanishes the moment anything goes wrong. And things always go wrong. That's why construction sites across the country are quietly slowing or shutting down. Not officially announced, just understaffed. Sites meant to have dozens of workers barely have a handful. Developments sit idle for days at a time. Subcontractors are collapsing first. Plasterers, roofers, ground workers. They're not being paid because developers don't have the cash. When subcontractors fail, work stops. When work stops, homes don't get built. And the shortage gets worse. Land banks have become a trap. Builders have another problem. They've already paid for the land. Billions spent on land banks, bought on the assumption that homes could be built and sold profitably. That land is now worth less than they paid. They can't build on it without losing money. They can't sell it without crystallizing massive losses. So they sit on its stranded assets, draining cash. Some major firms are holding land for tens of thousands of homes, representing more than a decade of stalled supply. Dead money, earning nothing, costing millions in finance charges. The 1.5 million homes promise. Now let's talk about the government's headline promise. 1.5 million homes by 2029. That's 300,000 homes a year. Last year, the entire industry delivered about 170,000, not because builders didn't want to build more, but because that's all the system could manage. To reach 300,000, capacity would need to nearly double. Double the workers, double the materials, double the equipment. In an industry that is currently shrinking. And even if that miracle happened, who would buy them? Mortgage approval data shows that genuinely new buyers number only a few 100,000 per year across the entire market. The government knows this. They have better data than anyone. So why promise the impossible? Because admitting the truth would be political suicide, the rental market feedback loop. When new homes don't get built, pressure shifts to rentals. Rental supply in major cities is already down sharply. Not just because landlords are selling, but because the homes that should exist never get built. This creates a vicious cycle. Rents rise. Saving becomes impossible. Buying remains out of reach. Renting continues. And rents rise again. Who's waiting to profit? While all this unfolds, institutional investors are watching closely. They're not buying now. They're waiting for collapse. When major builders finally break, land banks will be sold cheaply. Large funds will step in. Build-to-rent developments will replace homes for sale. Entire estates where ownership isn't even an option. Rent forever or leave. This isn't accidental. It's strategic. The supply chain is breaking. House building doesn't collapse alone. Brick manufacturers are closing plants. Concrete and paving firms are issuing profit warnings. Timber suppliers are redirecting stock overseas. Once these facilities shut, they don't reopen easily. Capacity is destroyed permanently. Even if demand returns, the ability to supply may not. The workforce is disappearing. And then there's labor. Skilled workers are leaving the industry and the country. Brexit ended free movement. Eastern European tradespeople have gone elsewhere. Day rates are higher, but work is inconsistent. Young people aren't entering construction. Apprenticeships have collapsed. The average worker is now nearing 50. Without workers, targets are meaningless. The banks know what's coming. Banks are deeply exposed. They've lent billions against land values that no longer hold and future sales that won't happen. Internal risk models suggest a large share of developer loans may default, but calling them in would trigger immediate collapse. So they extend and pretend. Development finance has dried up, strangling the industry further. Why 2025 matters. Several pressures converge next year. Loans come due. Cash reserves run out. Housing targets are missed. Spring selling seasons fail. Interest rates stay higher for longer. When these hit together, slow decline turns into fast collapse. Who wins and who loses? Those who win won't be British families. They'll be institutions with cash, foreign capital, corporations converting failed sites into worker housing. The dream of widespread home ownership fades. This isn't a short-term downturn. The model is broken. Homes cost too much to build. People earn too little to buy. Workers are disappearing. Finance is drying up. Vistry's profit collapse isn't a one-off. It's the warning signal. When builders can't build profitably, they stop building. When supply collapses, prices rise. When prices rise, buyers vanish, and the spiral tightens. This isn't pessimism. It's arithmetic, and arithmetic doesn't care about promises.